Now let's talk about something that nearly every person, furry or not, has had some exposure to: depression. In light of recent incidents, such as the Logan Paul video controversy, and other people coming out about their personal experience or experience a loss from someone who is battling depression, I felt it was really my turn to sit down and just speak candidly with you guys. Let's talk about depression. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States, affecting 40 million adults in the US aged 18 and older, or 18.1% of the population every year. The ADAA goes on to report that the most commonly diagnosed form of depression is major depressive disorder. In 2015, the ADAA reported that around 16.1 million adults aged 18 or older in the US had experienced at least one major depressive episode in the last year, which represented 6.7% of all American adults. They even went on to say that depression is the leading cause of disability in the United States among people between the ages of 15 to 44. But what is depression? Well, it's often ridiculed as just feeling sad, or used as a punchline in quips like, "I have crippling depression," by YouTubers like iDubbbz, who I love and I find very funny, but in all truth, this disorder is not that funny of a joke. According to the ADAA, what is considered major depression is characterized by at least 5 of the diagnostic symptoms, of which at least one of the symptoms is either an overwhelming feeling of sadness, loss of interest, or just loss of interest and pleasure in most usual activities. These symptoms can become overwhelming, causing the person suffering to lose interest in their day-to-day routine, cause them to start missing work, and can even make them actively isolate themselves from friends and family. Also within the bounds of depression is persistent depressive disorder, or dysthymia. Dysthymia. I can't pronounce it, but here it is on screen. This more aggressive variation carries equally destructive symptoms and recognizable behaviors. Among these, the most common is a low, dark, or sad mood that is persistently present for most of the day and on most days for at least 2 years. On potential side effects that are most worrying, sufferers may experience poor appetite or overeating, insomnia, hypersomnia, low energy or fatigue, low self-esteem, poor concentration, difficulty making decisions, or feelings of hopelessness. So why are we talking about this? Why does any of this matter? Well, there's a big reason for that. In an interesting piece by Fur Science, it was reported that when seeking counseling for therapy for unrelated conditions, many furries reported that they were driven away by therapists to ignore the problems they were experiencing, depression, and instead were focusing more on them being furry as the problem. Now, understandably, I can understand where some therapists would see dressing up as a giant animal as maybe a bit problematic if they didn't understand the reasons why and have a thorough knowledge of that person's medical history. But singling out that as the root problem and not focusing on maybe what's causing depression in the person as opposed to why they're wearing a suit is problematic. Many programs like Dr. Phil and My Strange Addiction have come to our community seeking to pick apart why we choose to associate with the furry fandom, often with mixed results. Some seek to categorize our interest as a mental disorder, while others look to contextualize it as a healthy hobby that can improve social interaction and overall quality of life. It's a mixed bag, and it just depends on who you listen to. Whatever the case, what has concerned me most as of late is the general lack of apathy or interest in addressing the root issues why some furries struggle with depression. To understand why, I should probably tell you something about myself. Despite always advocating for others to seek help and reach out to friends when depression begins to take over, I myself have largely neglected my own mental health. For years, I actively ignored and rejected the idea that I might be suffering from something I couldn't control. I'd have days when I couldn't seem to get out of bed, couldn't focus on my work, or spent nights praying for sleep only to be thoroughly exhausted in the morning because I got none. I had it, I knew the signs, but I wouldn't accept it. Flash forward to the day of the fated Aokigahara video by the Logan Paul nuisance that he is, And my own symptoms had become so extreme that making videos, going to work, and just getting out of bed seemed near impossible. It felt like I was expending all my strength just to get dressed. And I'm not out of shape or physically impaired. Despite taking an almost unnatural interest in documentaries like The Bridge and Boy Interrupted, it never dawned on me that I had begun to identify with some of these people suffering so badly in these documentaries and in other resources I was looking into. So naturally, when I saw the Faded video, I snapped. I reacted. I was furious. While I'd never reached a point where I would have gone to such a length as to go into a forest to die or fling myself off a bridge, I felt pure contempt towards someone whose profound ignorance resulted in a display of pure disrespect. And it was in that moment that I realized that I had been just as ignorant in a completely different way. I was ignoring what was happening to my body and my mind, and I kind of suddenly realized that I needed to do something about it. So what did I end up doing? Well, I'm now seeking help for what I'm thinking and feeling, and while I know it's going to be a rough ride, I know it's what I need to do. Now, traditional therapy might not be for everyone, but in my case, I found it to be very beneficial and it's really helped. So, what can you do? If someone you know is suffering from an anxiety disorder or a depressive disorder, encourage them to seek help. They may not realize or be willing to acknowledge it, but it's important that they get the help that they need. Try to be there for those that you love. Even if your friend or loved one isn't ready to accept that they need help, be there for them as much as you can. What might seem as annoying or whiny behavior now really might be the effects of the disorder greatly impairing their ability to function, communicate, and adequately care for themselves. So be open-minded. And finally, listen. If your friend or loved one begins to voice a need for help or support, be there to listen when you can. If it's too much, encourage them to find a professional or hotline that they can use to talk through what they're feeling if you're not able to. I know this has been way more personal than you guys are used to, and honestly, thank you to anyone that made it the entire way through. This past year has been incredibly hard to get through, and I appreciate every last one of you for being with me every step of the way.